I'll call this meeting of Land Use and Planning to order. I've inquired with the clerk, and this meeting has been properly noticed according to Wisconsin state statutes. Please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. We'll start with the consent agenda. Are there any notations or changes or anything that needs to occur with that? Hearing none, I will consider that passed. That will also agree then the payment for, is that Islandfeld Farms LLC? That's all in order. Okay. All right, discussable or possible action 2020 item A 2025 resolution advisory resolution urging the Wisconsin legislature to amend. Hang on one second. The Wisconsin Administrative Code, flood storage and flood fringe regulations to protect personal property rights and property values. Right, you're speaking on this? All right.
All right. I hope you guys got some time to quickly look at the resolution or really look at that resolution that we sent through. This all stemmed from the floodplain mapping changes that have been taking place for almost a year and a half now. Those have to be finalized by February at this time. So we were just notified by the DNR that these maps have to be official by, can't remember the date off the top of my head, by February. But the whole issue with Druid Lake stemmed from this. Druid Lake, the DNR is putting them into a flood storage area that is overlaid with their flood fringe area. Essentially, this makes their zoning district for the floodplain more restrictive. The big restriction is you can't bring in fill, which fill is required by the state of Wisconsin to allow your home to be built out of the floodplain. So there's some contradictions there with FEMA's regulations, the states, and that's where this all stemmed from. We did meet with Druid Lake almost a month and a half ago, me, Jamie, and Josh, to discuss this issue and get input from the Druid Lake residents, which we had a lot of constituents who came to this meeting to, yes.
The residents of Druid Lake, could you please raise your hand so we can see who's all got the interest here? And we thank you and we appreciate you showing up here tonight. This we realize is a very important issue, and in order for us to do things, we need you to come here and show your support for things. So I hope, generally speaking, that you're in support of this item. We're going to give it a shot, and thank you very much for coming out. Okay, go ahead. Thank you.
Yes. So for the resolution that you had before you is basically asking, it's going after the Wisconsin state statutes, not so much FEMA. In this case, the state is more restrictive than FEMA. So the flood storage is a Wisconsin DNR created rule. We're asking for that to be looked at and more solutions to allow residents to build if their home was to be flooded and to better upkeep their home. Because right now with state statute, they're under a very strict regulations, essentially. So essentially someone's home was to flood or burn down, it's almost impossible to rebuild with that flood storage district. It can be done, but for most lots, they're small in size. The restrictions are too great. They won't be allowed to bring fill in. There's low groundwater, so you can't compensate fill, which is basically what the flood storage is. For any fill you put on the property, you have to take off that property somewhere. With the low groundwater, there's not much to take off, as with the lot size. So the resolution itself touches on that and urging the DNR to look at more solutions and relook at these floodplain ordinances to protect property rights, but also to allow people to keep living on these floodplain lakes. And if you have any questions on certain parts of the resolution, I know Supervisor Pridemore had a lot of input from residents on, and Aaron, if you have any comments on that.
Yeah, I would like, if you don't mind, if I.
One moment
no.
before we do that. Okay, first we'll need to take a motion on this item. So it'll be motioned by Supervisor Pridemore. Do I have a second? Second by Supervisor Krebs. And discussion. Supervisor Pridemore.
Okay, I'd like to read a comment from one of the ladies that sent me. I have quite a few emails and they're pretty similar to the one here. If you don't mind me reading this.
Please.
The purpose of this note is to address a specific concern regarding the resolution. On the second page, lines 6 through 9, it states that they recommend we use pylons, helical piers, I hope I'm not pronouncing that too bad, and other engineering systems. Certainly, we will do that and want the protection when we build. But if they don't remove the requirement of the 30 feet of fill around our homes, the resolution verbiage does not help us at all because of the 60 and 70-foot lots. With our lot sizes, the current fill requirement would make rebuilding to flood standards impossible. We would appreciate your consideration of the following amendment to this, that existing homes would be grandfathered into the rebuild in the current footprint and void the 30-foot fill around all sides of the home. And she thanks us very much for listening, but most of the emails were all like this.
So you're the expert. And I understand, personally, I don't see a problem with grandfathering, is from my own personal view here. And whether or not that can be included in this. But as far as helical piers and stuff like that, could you give us a little bit of a brief,
Sure.
educate us a little
Yeah,
bit?
no, of course. So the only way to rebuild in a floodplain is to bring in 30 feet of fill around the home, a foot above the floodplain elevation, and the home has to be 2 feet above the floodplain elevation. This is referencing that these lots are very narrow. So to build a home, if anyone can figure it out, let me know, but you can't bring 30 feet of fill around a home in that small of a lot. These lots go from 60 feet to 90 feet, so it makes it impossible. Recently in January, we did issue a variance for an exception that was granted by our Board of Adjustment. That would have been for reduced fill setback. And the DNR does not, they have been the one to suggest that variance rule. Recently, I talked to a couple members on the lake and they did talk to the DNR and it is a common variance that they're not opposed. At our Board of Adjustment, we did have some opposition from the letter, but generally the DNR supposedly will not be against a Board of Adjustment with that reduced fill. The goal of the helical piers or pylons is to remove that completely, to be able to use engineering systems to raise it out, so you don't need to bring in any fill at all. Almost kind of like a coastal zone where you raise the house up on stilts. This would mitigate from having to bring in fill, since the flood storage rules do not allow you to bring in fill, which is the biggest concerns of residents on the lake. Is right now they're able to get homes by jumping through a ton of hoops, but once that goes into play, I mean, it's pretty much out the window as how the demographics of that lot is. It's, you can't bring in any more fill to raise these homes up with how the flood storage rules are written. So that's kind of a basis of what it is. I can clarify more if you have questions on it. Yeah, yeah, so for that amendment language, with the shoreline rules, you can rebuild in the same footprint, but floodplain doesn't work that way. You have to get the building to conform. I think the goal of this resolution is to urge other solutions to not have to bring in fill, such as the helical piers or pylons. That was the intent of it, but if you see any rewording, we could rewrite the amendment or add that in there to allow to build in the same footprint. But most likely the DNR and FEMA would like to see these homes conform somewhat. And we're asking for other solutions because they only have one solution and it's impossible essentially.
Okay, do you have more?
Well, the statement I wanted to make was, why is only Druid Lake seem to be the only lake that's being with all these rules and regulations?
Right, right. I think it's because it's a low-lying lake. I can't argue with the mapping that the DNR did if it's right or wrong, but the DNR states it's a low-lying lake. Elevations are low, which they say flooding can take place there. In Washington County, it's really the only lake that is a low-lying lake like this. Big Cedar, Little Cedar, they're all up higher on elevation. You got that hill, so you don't have flooding that goes into, there's basically no floodplain to it because of the elevation, the hill rising essentially. This is a problem throughout Wisconsin. It's just not Washington County, but Druid Lake is really the only one in Washington County that has this problem. But there's other counties that do have problems with these low-lying floodplain lakes, and they're in the same situation where essentially the same thing happens. If it floods your home, it's almost impossible to rebuild it.
Okay, and then the, the wonderful rainstorm we had, was that 2 weeks now?
Yeah.
Their homes weren't flooded.
Right, yeah.
We got a lot of rain.
I honestly was surprised that there wasn't any flooding, and that goes back to the DNR's mapping and how accurate it is, which is a valid argument. I don't know what rain event they declared the town of Erin in, or the Druid Lake. I haven't seen any data yet, but it would be interesting to see what they declare it as. That mapping right now is 100 years, so every year in 100 years that event could happen. Now, if you have a 1 in a 500-year event, that's a bigger flood with greater extents. So I know some people were saying that's a 1 in 500 year or 1 in 1,000. And if that was the case, it should have flooded out that area. So it'll be interesting to see what the data shows on it. I haven't seen anything yet, but it's an excellent point, and it was in the back of my head also.
So, and then would it be a good idea to have this amendment in there then, to put this in this resolution?
Yes, it could be possible. I think the best way to do it would be to wait for the data to see what type of storm event they declared that area. But yes,
Should we hold off on this resolution then?
that would be up to you guys if you determine that you would like to have that added in.
Personally, I think that's really good supporting documentation. And I'd hate to see that not brought to the Senate and then the Assembly, so that they can see, hey, we just had probably a 500-year flood and our homes didn't flood out. You know, this is causing undue harm to homeowners of Druid Lake. So if you're going to take a shot at this type of resolution, you really got to make it right the first time. You got to hit a bullseye. So they can't question, and it doesn't become political. You know, that I think those are the things that you really want to try and work towards. Supervisor Mary, you had something?
Yes, I had a question. You indicated that somehow someone at the DNR indicated, so, well, yeah, go ahead and do it and we'll be okay.
Mhm.
Is that in writing?
We do have an email that was to one of the residents here regarding that. In terms of opposition, we have that in writing, as when we do a board of adjustment, we have comment from the DNR, and from our floodplain engineer in the area, they were opposed to it. So I have mixed signals from the DNR on how they'd like to handle it. From talking to them via phone, they have allowed it. So I was a little taken aback at the board of adjustment when they were opposed to it, essentially. So nothing formally in writing other than maybe emails and phone call and the opposition letter that would have been with our BOA file and is with our BOA file if you'd like to see it.
Well, question, Chairman, what exactly is the status of our decision here today?
Well, I mean, currently we could send it as written, we could amend it, or we could postpone it, trying to seek more information or to adjust it and get it right. I
This is
mean,
an advisory.
this is an advisory. But I think this one, you know, with the right language could have some pretty good teeth to it. Because I mean, obviously, there's some pretty good senators and assemblymen that kind of are in that area. So,
I totally support the grandfather clause to this situation because we've seen, we've had landowners here who've had this property for a number of years. Obviously, it survived the 500-year flood. But in order to, if something, they wanted to do something to it, whatever, the new restrictions would totally prohibit them from doing that.
Correct.
And I think we had discussion with it was the last month's meeting we had, is this almost like a taking of land? You own the land, but you're restricted, you can't do anything with it under the new rules. And if it would be beneficial to impact the opinions of our representatives to add the grandfather clause into here, in some way, manner, or form, I'm not sure what the wording would be, but something that the DNR would recognize as being, okay, this is a valid description of what we need to have done or whatever it is. It's something that they're gonna recognize, say, okay, yeah, we concur with this because it's grandfathered in. And if we can have the impact of the county weight behind it saying, hey, we're insisting that these residents be grandfathered in because your new regulations have taken away their property. And it's really, that's what it comes down to. And unless I'm totally misunderstanding that.
no, you got it.
They're taking it away such that you can't use it the way you bought it, for the reasons you purchased it.
Mhm.
And for the same reason you've been using it, they're taking that away. And I really believe if it means another week, another month, whatever it takes, if indeed we're not stalling a process somewhere, that if we properly word a grandfather clause in here, that the current residents would be exempt. And again, DNR should probably be consulted. How should it be worded that they're gonna accept it? Such that the residents could be exempt from these new rules and regulations that basically take away their property from them.
Right.
And I don't know how to word that, the other people
With-
would have to do that.
With that addition, if you would like to go that route, would you like it being the same footprint, which is that shoreline code, that's fine. But anything with elevation change with it or exactly as is? Is there, my only fear is that then you drag in the federal rules, which were more targeting this towards the state rules with the flood storage. We would have to probably rewrite or have a second resolution that would target the federal rules because you're dragging a federal rule with that. So the DNR will look at that and say, well, go talk to FEMA on that one, where the flood storage strictly goes after the Wisconsin DNR, if that makes sense. It gets complicated with who does what rule.
I can't suggest to you how it should be worded. I don't know. I'm not the
Sure.
technical person on that. But obviously somebody who knows how the rules work and how they can be gotten around or what the impact of a grandfather clause would be. I don't know what the wording should be.
Sure.
But I really do believe for the sake of the residents there, the landowners, there needs to be something in there giving them some kind of assurance that they're still their property and they can still use it.
Mhm.
Okay, if I may interject on that, and I'll get back to you. So basically what he's saying is you got two different rules here, okay? And if we were to do this grandfather, you're bringing in FEMA now. And it totally separate thing from what we're trying to accomplish with this resolution. If we try to write it in this resolution, it's gonna probably, if I think it wrong,
Yeah.
DNR is gonna look like, well, we're just gonna go ahead and throw this in the garbage because it's something we have no control over. That's a FEMA rule. So the danger here with adding this, if I'm getting this right, is that DNR won't pay attention to it because it does affect a FEMA rule. So you can either go with like a second resolution or stick to the guidelines of what's in this to keep from kind of activating the DNR's ability to worm their way out of it, for lack of a better word.
I'm not sure what the steps would be to do this properly, but obviously this doesn't seem right the way it is right now. And what has to be done to correct it, I don't know. But that's above our pay grade probably.
Mr. Chair.
Well, this is right for that one rule. you know, for the plain rule that the DNR controls. We're appealing, you know, so if you start with this, you can add on, you know, another advisory resolution. But this one itself covers the main problem with the Wisconsin DNR itself. So that's something we can, you know, if you write in stuff that they're not responsible for, you risk losing this. So that's why you might want to go with a second advisory resolution.
If that's gonna give a solution, that's fine.
Okay,
And
I just want to make sure these people over here are protected with their land.
I just want to note
What we
too.
have to take, let's take them in the proper manner.
Sure. No, I just want to note too, as of now, without this flood storage rule, there's a very high chance they can rebuild, as we've seen it done. Residents have rebuilt their homes before this flood storage rule came into play and done additions and tried to make all the changes before this essentially got pushed through. Right now, there's high chances that they can rebuild, and I've seen it done. It's as soon as that flood storage comes into play, which is the DNR rule, that'll really change things 100%.
Supervisor Pridemore, could you hold off a little bit? I want to give Supervisor Krebs an opportunity, and I know the chairman would like to ask a question as well. So Supervisor Krebs?
Thank you. I think the word grandfather maybe isn't the right term that we should be throwing around here. But before I go down that path, I think a separate resolution might be in order down the road once the facts come out about the most recent rainfall event for, are these maps even correct to start with? Because if the maps are correct, a lot of this, yes, still should be addressed, but it's not as imminent, especially for this area. So depending on what classification data shows of that rainfall event, maybe we should try to pass another resolution asking the DNR to re-examine the maps, or maybe we could get some help from our friends at Sewer Pack that we'll be discussing here today too, and stuff like that. See where that data leads us. But as far as the grandfathering of structures and stuff, I think if you look at this resolution, page 2, lines 6 through 14, where it says, therefore be resolved, those two paragraphs are the meat and potatoes of what this resolution is. And it's saying two things pretty clearly. One is allow the Wisconsin statutes to allow these other engineering systems, which can, if those are allowed, the fill equation's off the table. We don't need a truck fill in. So I'm very supportive of that to start with, and I think that addresses the first set of issues that we have here, the homeowner space on getting these permits. And the second paragraph really talks about bringing the DNR standards equal to FEMA standards.
Correct.
And if we want to change FEMA, that should be a whole nother different resolution that we're sending federally. At this point, we're just trying to raise the lowest bar up to the next bar. So I don't really want to go down the path of adding too much more to it, because you're going to just make it more confusing. Right now, literally, if you take those two paragraphs, it's clear, concise, and that would really resolve the majority of our issues, not all of them. You know, it still does by raising the DNR regulations to the FEMA standards, it still does limit how much you can improve your structures after damage, but at least there's an option to do some of it.
Right.
So I would support it as is before we start making too many changes.
Okay, we're gonna go to Chairman Schleif.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Well, I've been talking about this issue with the county executive for months now. I know he's met with all of you, and if there was ever a need for a advisory resolution, this is it. I strongly support it, but I have two questions. First of all, you talked about, is it a 500-year storm? Is it a 1,000-year? Do you have any idea how soon that data will be available?
I would think a couple months, I would guess, to have all the data available.
Okay, and the other question is, if we put these houses on pylons, how high are we talking?
Yeah. If it was ideal, 2 feet above floodplain elevation. The requirement right now is your first floor has to be 2 feet above. So a couple feet, 3 feet maybe above the grade in that area.
Okay,
So it would still be the same requirement of being 2 feet above as you keep the safety aspect of it, which is still important. But you wouldn't have to bring any fill in. It would just be 2 feet above. You're still meeting that requirement, but you
right.
don't need to ship and fill. And even if the flood storage was not to be taken, even if they kept the flood storage district, I think this could be a solution that would go, I don't want to say go around it, but satisfy it. I'm hoping.
Make the situation better.
Right.
And also thank Supervisor Krebs for his comments. That was right on. Thank you.
Okay, Supervisor Pridemore.
Just want to make the statement. Most of these homes here have been handed down from generation to generation. And I think, something about heritage. And I want to make sure it stays that way where they can hand it down to their grandchildren. And that's their desire. And I just think, can we just make this a little better and critique this resolution? I think maybe we could.
Okay, we'll go to the Chief Community Development Officer, James
Good.
Ludwig.
Good afternoon, Jamie Ludovic, Chief Community Development Officer. I just want to add that with what Supervisor Krebs has said and the chair and what I'm hearing from the committee, this resolution was vetted. It went through specific shoreline zoning, floodplain, and FEMA attorneys that we trust in terms of the language review, and then further was actually reviewed by the county executive himself, who added the language around of taking by government in its preparation to come before you. So while I appreciate the comments that we've received from the residents, I do think what we could potentially do, if it pleases the committee, is I would advise against postponing this resolution. But what we could do is between now and the county board, go back and take a look at that comment regarding fill requirements and grandfathering and be better prepared with both what the impact might be, and then also if we were to add it, what that language might be in terms of something that would be amenable to both the county executive as well as the committee during the course of that. I mean, I believe you can still make amendments on the floor of the county board, and seeing that they're relatively it's relatively all trying to accomplish the same thing. We can go back and vet that question about, is this FEMA, is this DNR? What kind of can of worms does it open up if we start adding that language? Because in all honesty, we have not had that conversation with our attorneys regarding what the words grandfathering do or don't do to this resolution. So I guess that would be my recommendation, is that you show support for the resolution and advance it with a positive recommendation, potentially adding that you're further urging the direction of review of the amendment submitted by residents during that time frame. And also to the residents, whether or not that amendment gets into this resolution does not preclude it from being something that we can take a look at, address, talk about as part of this process. It is sort of under the umbrella of point number 2 to some degree. So I just wanted to make those 2 points. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Any other discussion or questions from the committee?
Okay, just one more.
Okay, Supervisor Pridemore.
So, we'll be able to change anything if we have to during the county board meeting with this resolution. Because this is just passes on to, okay, just wanted to make sure.
As long as you receive a second, it's a majority vote.
Right, okay, yeah, of course.
Okay,
Okay.
And those type of amendments hopefully are worked out before the county.
Right,
yeah. So, I guess I'd like to add to this discussion this. I don't want to necessarily speak for the committee, but if you go by the language that I've heard, we are all in support of Druid Lake and the homeowners there and protecting their property rights. And, we all agree on this, so we all agree on this resolution. The question then becomes, what's the best way to handle it to hopefully maximize its effectiveness. And for that, we tend to count on our experts. And certainly these two are two of our experts, along with the attorneys that we utilize, as well as the county executive and what he can do. So the idea here is that we're not shooting down any amendment here. We're just trying to put through the best thing that's going to hopefully get some action that we want to occur. And we all agree that we want this. So I think that's kind of where we should probably take it. However, the one thing I would like to see if we can, between now and board, if we could nail down some numbers on that, on those rainfall totals, even if it's just the rainfall totals that can be used as backup material so that it can be presented with this resolution that, hey, you know, look at all this rain that happened. This was 100, 200, 500 year. We may not get that information, but look, you know, everybody knows this massive amount of rain fell and they did not flood out. That kind of bolsters this opinion a bit. So if that could be utilized between now and then. So I guess what I would probably say is that, you know, we have a motion, we have a second on the floor for this, and seeing no amendments, I would urge that we vote to push this to the county board. And if there is something that can be done with those parts, you can continue to work with them until that time when it comes before the board. Seem reasonable?
Yes.
All right. So,
Just so you know, Pam is on that now.
oh yeah, good. Seeing. Okay. Hi, Pam. Okay. So all in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? All right. We have.
Oh, excuse me.
Oh.
Supervisor Conrad, I'm going to abstain because I joined the meeting at 4:44.
Totally understood. Supervisor Mary?
One final comment, sir.
We
I
just-
would like to thank the residents who showed up today for the meeting because you'd be surprised how few times this happens. Thank you for coming. Thank you.
All right, we will move on to B 2025 resolution authorizing the Washington County Golf Course expansion project and use of cash on hand to start the project. Do I have a motion? Motion by Supervisor Pridemore, seconded by Supervisor Mary, and discussion. Who's presenting? Is there anything? Okay.
Ken. Good evening again. Thank you so much. We have talked about this project several times with this committee, so I am going to start brief and I can expand and provide as much information as you all would like on this item. So we were before this committee when we were going through the capital improvement plan. If you recall the 2050 plan scenarios where we showed kind of the cash flow, and this group actually recommended that we recommend a scenario where we use debt to sustain the $750,000 cash flow level in the golf course. So that's where we find ourselves today. We just prepared a 2026-2027 drafted county executive budget that does include a debt issuance and the interest on debt easily as it relates to the cost of financing this project. During the context of that conversation, we got down to the specific level of should we borrow $1.5 million over, this looks like 15 years and pay a total of $517,000 in interest, or should we borrow $1 million over 7 years and pay a total of $200,000 in interest, or should we borrow something more or something less? And so during the context of that conversation, and at the same time, we were talking about, I know I overheard the Public Works Committee just before this talking about lead lateral replacements, as well as the redevelopment task force campus is another one, about other potential debt scenarios in the future, and the financing tools that the county has, that as we were talking about this, we said, well, it would really be in our best interest to wait for the bids to come back on this project October 21st and then decide how much we will borrow. The golf course cash easily allows us to do that. We were planning to pay for a chunk of this project anyway. And so it becomes kind of a cash flow issue. And so we during the context of that conversation, we were concerned that the county board hasn't acted on this project. The budget hasn't been adopted. There has been no debt resolution. The only action has been the approval of the capital improvement plan, which is a planning document. And so the solution we're putting forward today is a resolution that authorizes us to do this. And although it's an authorizing resolution with a majority vote, it implies that we intend to borrow with the adoption of the budget in the future. And so we are looking for a 2/3 vote of this resolution to show support for this project. The details of the project did go to an open house. They are also being discussed with our architects at the Next 18 Impact Social next Wednesday night. So there will be more context around what those current renderings look like. And that project, which is fully supported and fully funded by the golf course with no impact on property taxes. So again, this resolution really allows us to have more comfort and an approval from the county board in the fact that we are intending to move forward spending the money that we have on this project. So I'd be happy to answer any questions if you have them on this.
All right.
Thank you.
Any questions by the committee? Supervisor Krebs?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The debt resolution, that would be through the county board, or it's the county debt, even though this is an enterprise fund, correct?
We would be recommending that,
Okay,
yes.
so it'd still be the traditional, go out and solicit see what the proposals come back for rates, terms, stuff like that.
Yes.
And the big numbers, it shows that we have 833,000 in cash on hand, plus a pledge from the endowment fund or endowment committee for another 200,000. So, so it looks like we have $1 million already. But that 833 number, how much of that do we need to keep for working capital? Like
750,000 was ideal. That is partially the reason what you're doing with this resolution is you are essentially, at the end of the day, and our chief administrative officer can speak to this, but the cash all falls in the same spot in the county. So in the past, it has been traditional for, if needed, the golf course would borrow cash from just the rest of the county's cash. I'm not,
yeah, just which pocket.
yes. And so I'm not saying that this would necessarily happen in this case, because if we get numbers back October 21st, we will be making, we are looking at maybe a preliminary debt resolution in November or December. It's unlikely that the project will be more than 20% complete by then, 25% complete. So we still might not need to do that. But that is kind of part of the, we're not comfortable doing this anymore unless the county board approves the project. Aaron, do you have anything to add to that?
I would only add that I think the timing is important on this because of our ability to kind of reimburse ourselves once the project starts, right? So we can pre-spend and then reimburse ourselves with the debt proceeds, but there are certain timing requirements of that. And so we're kind of in a position where we wanted you to see and authorize us to get started, but we didn't want to bring the initial debt resolution to you right away and start that clock, right? Because we've got some timing to kind of work out and some of those discussions to kind of hammer out yet. So the timing is important, and I think that's kind of why, just a little explanation about why this is a little bit non-traditional in terms of debt and then proceed, right?
What's the timing issues of a debt resolution? Like is there a certain window after we approve a debt resolution that we have to execute it, or it's?
No. In terms of issuing debt, there are no real timing pieces, but specific to us reimbursing ourselves, right? So if we wanted to kind of get started on the project, we want to make sure that we're not authorizing that debt too early, because we are still having those just kind of general policy and project discussions yet at this point.
Okay. So I guess my thoughts or my one concern would be is, on paper, it looks like we have 50% of the project cash on hand, more or less. But I don't want to get too far in front of our skis here where, you know, the project's too far along and the funding doesn't come through or something. So I'd like to kind of make sure we at least, I'm okay with this, but as long as we're establishing milestones of if we're not on track for approvals or if the issuing of the bonds, that project has to have a spot where it can stop.
Mhm.
Or we're not tearing open too much of, demoing too much of the clubhouse and then not having the money there to
Yeah,
restore it.
right. So the big date in my mind on our current schedule is October 21st, which is when bids would come back. So on October 21st, we show 2 million in this project, but if you dive into that line by line, that was a pretty high level budget. As they're preparing construction documents, they're tuning that number. We just had very, very favorable bids as a county come back on both our campus project as well as our Fair Park project. So as we're talking about, well, how much should we borrow and what kind of interest does the county want to pay and what's in the best interest of the golf course? It really came down to that question of how much do we really need to stay at our cash threshold and not hold too much cash. And so we just weren't comfortable with the success of the golf course, even in the current year overperforming, that we weren't going to borrow too much money, if that makes sense. So we wanted to wait until we have that number. And then in November, we can at a minimum come back with a report on the project isn't set to start until November 19th. So right? So bids come back and then we're looking at breaking ground and doing some of the outdoor work yet this season to finish it before the course really gets underway next spring. That's kind of the timeline of the project. And so it was important that we start this year. And so this might be a little premature because depending how this goes, we might have this resolution almost immediately followed by the debt.
Yeah, are we picking up a month in there, a couple weeks type of a deal? Okay.
Unless the numbers come back so favorable that we're reassessing the whole need to borrow.
Don't hold your breath on that one.
And I guess, kind of put a point on it. What you're looking at here is the ability to get started a little bit more on time. B, you're being financially prudent because you borrow $2 million, you can't prepay on these loans typically for a certain amount of time. So they cost you a lot more in interest payments. So if you want to save money, you want to kind of narrow down the parameters of this project, get it down to what you really need. And this would be very financially prudent for the golf course itself, not extending itself any further than it has to. So that's kind of the way I see this. Anybody else have any comments on this or questions? Supervisor Mary?
Yes, I would just like to stress, and we did this, I think, Supervisor Pridemore and I were at the open house at the golf course a few weeks ago. And I wanted to stress that any reporting on this that goes out, make sure the public understands that this is paying for itself. That this is not coming off the levy, that the golf course is profitable, a profit center, so to speak, unto itself. And this is not, somebody who's anti-sports or anti-golf saying, why is the county spending money to spiff up the golf course? Well, the golf course is spending money to improve the golf course. But this is not public funds that are being used to this. Well, I guess in that sense it is, but it's not levy funds.
Right.
That are used for this project. I think that needs to be stressed and make sure the public is aware of that. That is not levy funds that we're making this borrowing.
That is a great point, Supervisor Mary. All right, any other questions or comments? All right, hearing none, then we'll go ahead and take our vote. All in favor, signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? And it passes unanimously. All right. We will move on then to item C, Glacier Hills Rental Analysis Report. And who do we have, Ms. Ludovic?
I would love to introduce Abigail Jasinski. So she's been working as an intern in our office, and this is her capstone project. At the last meeting she attended to learn more about kind of the committees and the county board, and you guys mentioned wanting more data on out-of-state parks. And so we thought this would be a good kind of capstone end project. I think her last day with us is on Tuesday. So we appreciate her time in the office, and take it away.
Well, young lady, you do realize this is my childhood home, right? So
No.
make it good.
Okay.
What if we won't let you leave?
Well, maybe I'll come back during winter.
Well, that'd be great.
Yes. I'm Abby Jashinsky. I'm a junior at UW Green Bay, where I'm studying public administration and political science. I've been interning in an administrative position during my time at the Washington County Parks and Planning Office over the last 2 summers. During my time, I've been helping with office work while answering questions over the phone and helping customers purchase park passes. I've been asked to write reports relating to visitor location information based on the request from last meeting. We will begin with the Glacier Hills Rental Analysis Report. This report will show the usage and visitor location data for the 9 tiny cabins at Glacier Hills County Park. Section 1, Glacier Hills Rental Location Information. While looking at the first chart, it is important to note that only 61% of the rentals show visitor location information, as Airbnb users are not required to show location information on their profiles. Within the available location information, half of tiny cabin renters came from Wisconsin. The next highest number of renters were from Illinois, with an average of 27% of the rentals between 2023 and 2025. Other renters came from nearby states such as Minnesota, Indiana, and Michigan. In the next section, trends for the tiny cabin rentals, the second chart shows that the total number of tiny cabin rentals has declined between 2023 and 2025. The variation of out-of-state visitors has decreased as well. In summary, a significant portion of rentals were made by Illinois and Wisconsin visitors. However, the total number of tiny cabin rentals significantly decreased over the past 3 years. If anyone has any questions, I'd be happy to answer them. Otherwise, I will wait until the next agenda item is called to continue on to my next report.
Supervisor Pridemore?
Yeah, my question is, I was just wondering, since COVID era, I noticed people were, during the COVID era, they were doing more things that were outdoors because so many things were closed. And I'm wondering if that had some effect on this, if you had any correlation at all. If you did any research before this,
I didn't look at that, no.
but just curious.
Anyone else? Supervisor Mary?
In response to Supervisor Pridemore's question, I believe, let's go back 3 or 4 years ago when we looked at the potential impact of COVID and the actual impact of COVID. And yes, we did see a tremendous amount of usage of outdoor facilities, and our park usage has skyrocketed at that point in time. Now, whether or not that's worn off, I don't know. But yeah, it did have an impact, very much so, on the usage of the outside facilities at the parks.
Just a foreshadow based on the tiny cabin rentals, the trends for our annual park passes and our daily park passes in 2025 are very down. So what you're going to see in the budget is not optimistic as it relates to the user fee revenues for all, and we don't know exactly what it is, but all of those things and individual, we're kind of boiling it back to, our data people are boiling it back to individual choice. So you'll see that in the numbers presented to you in September or October.
Yeah, I would concur with Supervisor Mary that under COVID, there was less choices. And even with less choices, there was less people who wanted to be around groups of people. And the parks kind of gave you that ability to take advantage of camping and swimming and stuff like that to get that separation that we were doing at the time. So I think it was just the right facility at the right time when it came to COVID. But now people are rejoining the society and getting out to our public places more. So that will dilute what the parks are receiving. And we have to change our plans to try and figure out what that dilution is. So your work here will help to show us the way and what we can do moving forward. So I thank you for your great work.
Thank you.
With that, guess we can move on to the next thing. Is there something else?
I was just gonna say, Abby's got one more.
Oh,
She's got more to tell us yet.
oh, I'm sorry. My apologies. Go right ahead.
So now we're going to look at daily and annual park pass purchase information. This will break down visitors by county and state to show where park users are coming from. We will start by looking at annual passes. The first chart is broken down by county. It shows that the majority of annual park pass purchasers are from Washington County, Wisconsin, followed by Ozaukee, Waukesha, and Milwaukee counties. Looking at the next page, the second chart is separated by state. While looking at the second chart, it is important to note that only the top half represents around 1% of the data. Less than 1% of annual passes were purchased by out-of-state visitors. Wisconsin visitors consistently purchase around 99% of annual park passes. Most out-of-state visitors are from nearby states, including Minnesota and Illinois. Otherwise, visitors came from an irregular collection of states or Canada. Next, we will look at daily park passes. While looking at daily park pass purchases, the analysis cannot include recent daily visitor location information due to the removal of the zip code entry requirement in 2024. However, this was added again in 2025, so future analysis is possible. Looking at state information on chart 3, we can see that residents purchased most daily passes as well, with an average of around 95% between 2020 and 2023. While the percentage is small, Illinois and Minnesota residents purchased the highest individual amount of out-of-state daily park passes. When broken down by county on chart 4 on the next page, nearby counties purchased around 2/3 of daily park passes compared to Washington County's 1/3. Again, these purchases are made from nearby counties, including Waukesha, Fond du Lac, Dodge, Ozaukee, and Milwaukee. In summary, out-of-state park pass purchases were minimal compared to in-state purchases. Most annual passes were purchased by Washington County residents, while other Wisconsin County residents purchased more daily park passes. Overall, this analysis suggests that if the Washington County parks were to raise daily entrance fees, it might be less impactful on Washington County residents with the potential to bring in more user fees.
Questions, comments? Supervisor Mary?
Just taking the information, thank you for pulling this together. From a marketing standpoint, and I don't know to what degree we go out to outside of the area in terms of soliciting or telling everybody about, hey, come to Washington County, we got some great places for you to explore. The annual park pass is sold by state, I think is informative, and it gives us a particular direction on where to focus if we're going to do such a thing. I would suggest the Chicago suburban areas, and I was very surprised to see the numbers out of Minnesota with all the recreational opportunities that exist there. But I just think from a marketing standpoint, this is very informational to have, very good information to have. Thank you.
Thank you.
Supervisor Pridemore?
What is the daily park pass? I don't even know what the cost of to get ours from the veterans.
It's $7.
$7?
Yes.
For daily. So then it's what, 35 for
It's
annual?
35 for a resident and then 50 for a non-resident. And then we have a senior pass for 25.
Okay. And I would note for our discussion that that is probably one of the finest deals there are in entertainment value. Because of the fact that, you know, we don't care how many kids you pack into that car. So for that same $50 or even $35, and you're taking, you know, 10 kids to the swimming hole, and all day hiking on the trails. And, I mean, where else are you going for that kind of money for one day? And it's unlimited and all year long. So I still say that the park pass is one of the best values in the state on entertainment, especially with our parks. I mean, the beauty of our parks, the dog parks, the frisbee golf, the mountain bike trails, all the activities and stuff that we do, all the events that we plan. It's just a no brainer. Go get a park pass. All right. Anything else? We're all good. All right. Thank you very much. We appreciate your hard work and your internship with us.
And good luck.
Thank you.
Okay, presentation discussion, Cedar Creek Farmers Update and Grant Application. Ms. Ludovic, who is presenting today?
This would be our county conservationist, Paul Backus.
Right.
This is my neighbor, Paul.
Thank you, Chairman Kelly. All right. So I'll give you a kind of a brief interview, kind of overview of what Cedar Creek Farmers has been up to over the course of this year. And this ties back into the committee report regarding the $40,000 carryover request that's from the underspending in the conservation account. So to dive into this, I got a couple slides here just to give you a quick overview, is showing you why kind of the work of Cedar Creek Farmers, I find them to be important. Is you look at the picture that I got here, is it shows a no-till field. That's the practices that Cedar Creek Farmers is promoting. And then there's the tilled field, which is kind of the more traditional way of farming. And you can see there's two big differences that I get pointed out here. Is you can see that there's just a lot more water leaving the field from the tilled field versus the no-till field. And generally the water is cleaner. So when we have large rain events like we had, it keeps more of the soil on the ground and it keeps more of the water soaking into the ground to keep them off of our roads and keep it out of our basements. So, and some of the stuff they were up to this year, they've held a couple educational events. With the first one was held at the Lofi Farm in Richfield, where we had 82 people attended. That one occurred way back in February. Like I said, that's pretty good attendance for us. Everyone was packed in there and everyone got some pretty good take-home topics out of it. And this event is where Cedar Creek Farmers was at Breakfast on the Farm this year. And it was hosted at one of our active board members at the Peters Farm. And the idea that the group had was to have wagon rides that circled around the farm, highlighting some of the good practices that are occurring on the Peters Farm. Is where I think even us getting into the day, we didn't know how well this was going to go. We had 3 tractors running nonstop for 4.5 hours. We didn't get a good head count of how many people came through, but just kind of estimating the loop of the tractor and how many people we were cramming on each one was, we think we had about 1,300 people that we kind of taught that day. And I think all of us, I know by the end of the day, I could barely talk anymore. I was trying to talk over a tractor on a constant loop, and yeah, I was hoarse and could barely talk. So I know we had stickers. You can see the top left photo there showed a happy family where everyone got their stickers and the kids were proudly wearing them. So, and our most recent event is at the Roden Farm. That's just a little south of Newburgh. We had what we call our Cookout Social, which is mostly strictly just trying to stick to the farm community, just having the farm community there. We have like a light presentation, a dinner, and just more of an opportunity for everyone to get together and network. We estimated we had about 63 people attended that one. One of our last events for the year coming up is at the Ross and Marcy Bishop Farm. We're going to be hosting a little event that's going to be highlighting some of the practices he's doing, specifically some prairie strips, where he's got some natural prairies that are in between on his crop land and highlighting some of the stuff that he's doing at that. And kind of going ahead, looking at what the group is planning on doing for 2026 and beyond, is currently, if you look on the left side, that's their current project area. It's more focused on the center of the county in what we call the Cedar Creek watershed. The group decided that over time is that they were pretty much they're inviting their educational vets we're letting everyone go to, is now we're going to a little more officially kind of say we're more of a county-wide group, and showing the watersheds that more represent that. See on the map that there's a kind of a hole on the right, the map on the right side, showing a hole in the southwest part of the county in like the Erin, Richfield, southern part of Hartford. There's actually another active producer-led watershed group similar to what Cedar Creek Farmers does called Farmers for Lake Country. And they're active in that area, so it was kind of decided that we wouldn't be overlapping that event, but we'd still want to be collaborating with that group, kind of similar how we currently do. And the other big changes, and this is what's tied to kind of the reason why we're asking for the carryover request, is the group is looking at bringing an incentive program to help try and encourage other farmers to adopt some of the same practices that they do. Which I know this is many of the same practices that Mr. Dornacher has adopted on his farm too with his son. Is we're trying to encourage more no-till planting, kind of not taking kind of that classic plow going out the field, turning over, just directly planting the crop into the stubble from the previous year. Planting crops in between crops, which we also refer to as cover crops, and then also planting your crop directly into a green and growing crop, and then trying to kill that afterwards. So, like I said, we're trying to build out an incentive program. A subset of the group met yesterday. We're trying to hammer out some of these details, and we're really gearing up trying to offer this for next year. And like I said, our goal with the carryover request is to be able to take $10,000 a year for 3 years to be able to help incentivize and package that together with a grant we'd send off to the Department of Agriculture, Trade, and Consumer Protection to try and take the $10,000 and turn it into $20,000 that we can take out and help more people with that. So, got a quick question, Chairman? No. Sorry, I'll just keep going. To help facilitate this, we recently hired another conservation specialist in our office. His name is Robert Muehlbauer, and he's been closely working with the group. I know we'll be working with Tandem and kind of helping roll out some of these new initiatives and programs with the group. So, and another quick plug is I've been planning the Southeast Area Fall Conservation Tour with Supervisor Mary. And it's coming up October 2nd, and we're going to be hitting on a couple of these topics that I quickly went over as part of my presentation here today. And I know we'll get more information out there, and hopefully you guys will be able to attend too. So I know I went through that pretty quick. So, and hopefully plenty thorough, but if you have any questions, feel free to let me know, or if any more detail too on the committee report.
All right, Supervisor Krebs.
Thank you. Question on the grant portion of it. It says that the grant is capped at 40,000 with a 1-to-1 match, and we're looking at carrying over 40,000.
Yep.
So that would then, if we would be granted the full grant, it would be 80,000.
Yes.
Okay.
But there's a couple caveats to that. Is I don't like part of it too is I can show there I need a cash contribution, what we call in kind, and in kind can be like staff time and other donations we may receive. And going into this, we also know that that every group asks for 40,000, but they get a prorated version of that down too.
So just to clarify, we are asking for a $40,000 carryover. We would use $10,000 of that cash each year for 3 years for the grant, because there's cash from the county, plus there's donors, plus there's in kind to equal a $40,000 application in 2025. So we aren't using that full amount in 1 year. That's going to kind of fund that future pilot program for 3 years, the application for 3 years, and then the remainder balance is for potential organizational changes that we might be bringing forward related to the organization of the group itself.
Okay, so what I was getting at was yes, if we don't get prorated, if we would achieve full grant amount, we'd have up to 80,000. But we're talking, the next paragraph says about 10,000 a year would be made available for utilizing to match the grant. Are we so would the spending per year be at 20,000? Like the 10,000 plus the 10,000 of grant?
I think the 10,000 is going to be pooled with other, like they get private donors, approximately 10,000 a year. combine that with the 10,000 from the county's contribution, and then ideally we'd be able to find another 20,000 in kind or other sources to be able to have what we're applying for, showing the 40,000 to match with the $40,000 request from the state. In an ideal world, the program was fully funded. Yeah, that would bring us 80,000.
So the future incorporation, the fiscal effect note, then a future incorporation and a 40,000 carryover request.
Mhm.
So that's assuming if we would get the 40,000 then in 2025, then we would be carrying over for those future years, how it's prorated out, or how we're prorating the spending of it. Is that what?
I think what the 40,000 alludes to is essentially we're taking the savings that were generated this year. We're gonna move them to a budget line item so that we don't spend it. And then you'll see on the carryover request next spring, we're gonna take 40,000 from that line item and we're gonna request that we carry it over. So this is kind of foreshadowing that. And then of that 40,000, what this is saying is that the 10,000 per year will be combined with additional additional revenues that they're talking about, and then these in-kind sources, which essentially means the expenses we were going to make anyway, we can claim against this grant. And so that's where we would look to, achieve up to that 40,000 grant per year, but only spend 10,000 of these proceeds for those 3 years.
Okay, thank you.
Sure.
Any other questions? Ralph Dornacher.
I would like to make a comment. I mean, my son Alan's done quite a bit to this, and cover crops and doing things on there really help the erosion. The water filters down. It filters better. You don't have to the runoff, and you got better crops.
Thank you, Mr. Dornacher. Supervisor Mary?
I would encourage all of you to pay attention when you get the invitation for the October 2nd event, because the slide that was just up there, that's where we're going to be. That's at the Bishop Farm. It's on
Marcy.
County Highway D north of Germantown. And we need to have Marcy take another picture of that when they got the lights up on the silo filter pipe, because it looks like a giant lit candy cane. They have them lit up at the winter time. So, but come and join us on October 2nd.
Very good. So just ask, what's,
You address that.
oh, I'm sorry, Supervisor Conrath?
Oh, thank you, Chair. Yeah, I would just like to make a comment to that. I am in support of this. I see that the Cedar Creek farmers too, they invest so much already and invested in adding a position. And this, ends up truly supporting our quality of life in Washington County, going down to our water sources and everything, like they, kind of highlighted just a little bit in those images. And I think this too would help, support on the farmers who are signing up for the farmland preservation too, to help them meet those requirements of the state in order to receive the funds and formally, sign up for the farmland preservation.
Thank you very much. Aaron, so then for this this would just be as a matter of the budget and would be presented at budget time, but what we're looking for is this a thumbs up kind of thing? What are we?
So there is no action. This will come in your budget, and it will also come via that carryover request. But the DADCAP grant is due in September. So what we are going to do is we're going to apply with this strategy. We can always reject the money should it not be funded in the budget or the carryover request denied. So we just wanted to, because we're going to be putting forward that application that shows a match that technically we don't have yet, we wanted to share it with the committee. If there are any major objections to this strategy, we would want to, voice them so we can reconsider. But at this point, this is really just an information item on this is the plan.
All right, Supervisor Mary?
Yeah, just a clarification, DATCAP is the Department of Agriculture, Trade and Consumer Protection. It's the state ag agency, sort of, if you didn't understand what that was.
I love it when people clarify the anagrams because that drives me crazy. Oh, the TPS reports of the, ugh. So, very good. Thank you, sir. I appreciate that. Okay, so I guess we're looking for any objections. Anybody at the committee here have any particular objection to this item? I certainly do not, so I would consider that to be pretty much a thumbs up.
Thanks.
We appreciate your work, Mr. Backus.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right. Biennium budget briefings relative to SERPAC.
Thank you. I will take this. For the people watching, Jamie Ludovic, Chief Community Development Officer with Washington County. What you have before you in tonight's agenda is two budget policy related items. All of the committees across the county are getting budget briefings from the respective cabinets of items that are of significant policy implications. So the Land Use and Planning Committee is not unique. There are a number of these across the county. They will, the executive committee will be getting kind of an overview of all of them. And then they will eventually show up in the county executive's recommended budget when it comes to the committee. That's important to note because we are not looking for any action tonight. We are just simply trying to give a precursor to the discussion and make sure that there is significant time for the committee and the county board to get any input, comments, questions, data requests, thoughts in order to make an informed decision and have a productive budget conversation later this fall. On that front, I will also add that I did personally notify all of the chief elected officials, as well as the lake districts that we had contact information for and the county's 3 land trusts, of this item on the agenda tonight. Noting that this is a conversation we wanted to make sure that they were aware of because they are all stakeholders of our participation in the Regional Plan Commission, among other things. It actually triggered our Chief Public Works Officer to send some stakeholder notification emails because he had similar stakeholders in the towns with regards to some of his bridge aid and culvert aid items that he was considering talking to with his committee. So what we have before you is two. The first one we're going to talk about is the county's participation in the Regional Plan Commission, which there was a lot of information provided in your packet. I hope you had a chance to read it. I am not going to go through all of it, but I am going to go through a few of the highlights because we really wanted to point out this is a very intricate participation that we have in the Regional Plan Commission, and the services that they provide the county as well as the other stakeholders are vast, and they touch a lot of different places in the region, people, things, in terms of the implications. We have not answered all of the questions regarding this. I know SewerPAC, Stephanie, as well as her team are here today, their executive director, which is awesome. They have been great partners in terms of the conversation, providing several of the memos that are in your packet. The first item that was in your packet was their budget for 2026, their increased levy request, as well as it goes through their program areas so you can really see where the levy dollars are being applied. Then there was an implications memo that was done independently from the county's budget policy and analytics department, where they interviewed a number of the key county stakeholders, actually many. I see our land information officer in GIS manager in the audience tonight. I know he was one area that there was significant conversation around, as well as transportation, as well as Deb Silsky, comprehensive planning. And so if you get a chance to read that memo, it goes pretty in detail to some of the concerns about some of the services that are provided or may not be provided going forward, should we discontinue the participation in the Regional Plan Commission. Then there is a memo from our Community Development Director, Deb Silsky, related to the county's comprehensive plan. That was done because, well, it is kind of an issue within the issue, if that makes sense. It's a smaller subset of the Regional Plan Commission's work, but it is something that we need to be thinking about starting to update in 2027. And so we went through the exercise of what is the implication of the comprehensive plan related to the participation in sewer PAC? What are the choices for doing that work? And you can see she outlined what they were. I will point out there that the withdrawal from sewer PAC, if that materializes, it is likely that option 3 or 4 are deployed, right? An in-house update to that plan and or kind of the minimalistic approach to that service. So right, not more with less, but less with less is kind of the common theme that you sometimes hear us say as we look at if you make changes or make cuts in certain areas, right, to fund other areas or other priorities. Those are the implications. And so we wanted to make sure there was an understanding of those. And then finally, there is a more recent memo from Sewer PAC on page, I guess it's 87, that, oh, nope, I'm on the real estate transfer fees. That is from the Southeastern Regional Planning Commission, kind of outlining a little bit of the history dating back to 1960 and the purpose, and then requesting from them. I know that they had asked for kind of the opportunity to address the group on a few items. And I will leave that as a nice transition point, should the chair wish to acknowledge that request. And I am here to answer questions, as is, I know we've got Aaron here, our Chief Administrative Officer. We've got Eric Damcott here. He's an expert in a lot of the data areas for the county and one of the key stakeholders on the county side. Our conservationist is also still here in the audience, which they do a lot with land data, land planning for water resources, as well as, stormwater design and engineering type stuff. And then, of course, it looks like we have several representatives from Sewer PAC here, probably in all areas, which is greatly appreciated.
Okay, this is a discussion item for something that's not included in the executive's budget. So basically, it's up to us to try and get into the nuts and bolts of this. So I highly encourage you to really ask some tough questions here. This is the time for tough conversation.
Can you verify that again? That's not in the executive.
That is, says right in the budget.
Yes, that is correct. The contribution for the Southeastern Wisconsin Regional Planning will not be in the county executive's recommended budget.
So that has a lot of implications. And we have the people here that can speak on the pluses or minuses of that. Obviously, it's $197,000 line item, which, considering the way the budget looks this year, I can understand the executive's point of view. But I also want to know just how this affects the county, how it affects SERPAC, what services could be a problem. Literally, we want to get you guys all the information so that you can kind of make the best decision. So with that, Jamie, what would SERPAC like to address?
I guess I would invite Ms. Hacker up to the podium and or her team to maybe start with some brief comments, and then maybe open it up to questions if there are any from the committee.
Okay, so let's start with that. Welcome. Thank you for coming out today. We appreciate you being here.
Thank you. And thank you. Chairman Schleif for having our presence as well. My name is Mike Crowley. I am a Waukesha County Board Supervisor, District 16 in the city of Waukesha is the area that I represent. That's the northwest corner of the city of Waukesha. I have served on the Waukesha County Board for the past 14 years. I have also served on Sewer PAC, continue to serve on the executive committee as secretary and former vice chair of Sewer PAC. And I am here tonight to share with you our observations in Waukesha County of the work that Sewer PAC does for Waukesha County. We have been very proud of the work and the partnership that Waukesha County has with Sewer PAC. The value of the services we could not replicate internally. However, it is always a topic of discussion when that levy comes forward. And are we getting the best bang for our buck as a member of the Regional Planning Commission? I can say yes, our county board chairman and our county executive continue to applaud the work that Sewer PAC does. As a Sewer PAC commissioner for the past 13 plus years, we take this very seriously. The process of the levy, the work that is done, serving on the executive committee. I also serve on the planning and research committee as chair, and also the public relations and intergovernmental committee as chair. Communication is vitally important in what we do. And that's why we're here this evening. Knowing the concerns that each county may have in their budget, this is very important to communicate to you the value of what services you get. We have an outstanding staff of nearly 70 professionals at Sewer PAC. We review the budget very intently every year. We have an opportunity to work with the staff very closely. And since Ms. Hacker has joined Sewer PAC a few years ago, we have begun a reevaluation of how we can improve our efficiencies even more so than what we have done through the years. So this evening, I'm here to represent and to support our staff and to represent our executive committee and observe conversations and questions and concerns. And if there's anything that I can help clarify to our chairman, Chairman Coleman, who could not be here this evening, I'll be happy to share that on behalf of the commissioners. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. We appreciate it.
Thank you.
Good afternoon. I'm Stephanie Hacker. I'm the Executive Director for Southeastern Wisconsin Regional Planning Commission. Thank you for having us. We recognize your time, so we have a few brief remarks, myself, two others, and that is all. I'd like to acknowledge the comprehensive nature of your impact analysis from your policy analyst. And because of that comprehensive nature, focus on 3 quick points regarding the levy. The first is that to direct our federal funds into the counties we serve, those federal funds require a local contribution. So the levy, it cannot be emphasized enough, plays a role in providing the local contribution that is required to match those federal funds and bring them to the counties. The second is that while state law allows us to levy up to 0.003% of the region's equalized value, we have long remained far below that levy rate. And specifically for 2026, we are with a levy rate of 0.00079. So about a mere quarter of what we are allowed to levy by state law. So we have been very mindful of the levy and its role in our revenues. The third is that if we were to keep the levy rate the same in the future, that equalized value of Washington County plays a key role in whether you see an increase in the levy payment or decrease in the years ahead. So even if we say in the future years that we will maintain the levy rate of 0.00079, you could still, if your equalized value increases over time, see an increase in the levy. So it's formulaic. And I wanted to emphasize those 3 points. So with that, my acute observation is that the Regional Planning Commission has a longstanding approach to high quality and lean government services to the counties. And we've been very steadfast in looking at 2026 in a fiscally responsible fashion for all of our major revenue areas. We remain available to come and connect and meet with the county at any time to discuss our services. I will turn it to Deputy Director McKay and Commissioner Hanson, and that will conclude our remarks.
Thank you. Please come forward.
Good evening, Deputy Director Ben McKay. I'd just like to make a few comments, and I think I echo Stephanie Hacker's comments regarding your impact analysis report. I thought it was extremely thorough. I agree with all of the findings in that report, particularly about our services and again, impacts of maybe not being able to provide those services in the future. So a few common areas I wanted to touch on are around our services as well as some of our other Regional Planning Commission designations. And then I think you've done a great job, as you just explained, just making sure that stakeholders are informed, including local governments, lake districts, special units of government, which you did a fantastic job of. So I'm very appreciative of that. So to begin with the first bullet, just a brief overview of commission benefits. Again, I can keep this brief because I think that impact analysis was so comprehensive. And I think we tend to pay a lot of attention to service agreements, which are extremely important. So those would be things like when we assist with a comprehensive plan or maybe the land evaluation and site analysis or LISA analysis that we did recently in support of the Farmland Preservation Plan, just as a couple of examples. But I think something that maybe doesn't get quite enough attention when we discuss our services, really the breadth of data that is available to the county, all of our 7 counties that we collect on a routine basis. And we actually have on a historical basis, going back oftentimes to the 1970s, when we're looking at things like environmental information, where we've gone out and done field visits, field data, even things as minute as meeting notes, we often will have on file, so we can go back, look at historical record, and maybe figure out some answers to questions that the county may have. But I'd also like to focus on that routinely collected data that is really the cornerstone of many of the plans across the region, be they comprehensive plans, park and open space plans, land and water resource management plans, a whole host of plans, farmland preservation plans. Regardless of whether the commission is providing that direct assistance on a plan, that information is available to our counties and our local governments or consultants helping our counties and local governments with their planning activities. Just a couple examples I might like to highlight because they're going to be very important to the county, I think, coming up in the next few years, considering the need to do a 10-year update to your comprehensive plan. One example is our existing land use inventory. That's something that we do every 5 years, and we look at the entire region in great detail and put every square inch, every blade of grass of the region into 66, 67 distinct land use categories, and that really does form kind of the basis of developing a land use plan like a comprehensive plan, and also those other types of plans that I had just mentioned. So that is something that we take on about every 5 years. The last inventory was based on 2020 aerial photos and completed not too long ago. It is a pretty painstaking process, a very long process and a very detailed process. And I think actually, to my understanding, a very unique process for agencies such as ours. Our last effort did take about 2.5 years at a cost of about $536,000. So it is not an inexpensive process to do, but a very necessary process for doing accurate land use planning. Looking at Washington County, I think Washington County is roughly about 16% of the land area of southeastern Wisconsin. So this is not anywhere near an exact estimate, but that would be about $85,000 that we put towards working on that land use inventory specific to Washington County. If you use kind of that rudimentary calculation that I just described, so it is definitely takes quite a bit of time, quite a bit of effort, and it definitely takes some investment to do that kind of very important work. Another area of our work that I wanted to point out is population, household, and employment projections. So we do those about once every 10 years, usually in support of updating our major update of our regional land use and transportation plan, which is currently Vision 2050. That is a regional plan that also has implications for the county. We will be updating that beginning next year, but we're already doing the underpinning work like that existing land use inventory and these projections now. Those projections are, again, critically important for our regional planning, but also for things like comprehensive planning, park and open space planning, all those examples that I have mentioned. When we do our projections, we do them at a regional level for both population, household, and employment, as well as at the county level at the beginning of our process. We will be moving those projections out to 2060. If those projections were not available to the county, you may have to rely on other sources such as the Department of Administration and state projections. They have actually just moved their projection design year from 2040 to 2050. We go out a little bit farther because we need to use those projections for long-range transportation planning. They need to look out at 20 years at all times for federal transportation planning and funding purposes. So that is information is available to the county. And as we move through the long-range planning process, which is not a short process, we're aiming to hopefully have that plan completed in about June of 2028. So it is, again, another costly but necessary process that we need to undertake. As we move through that planning process and we complete that planning process, we will have what we call forecasts, which basically breaks those projections down into smaller geographic areas that can be used for things like sewer service area planning, local government comprehensive planning, and other types of planning activities. Those projections are critically important for, say, sewer service area planning. That is one of the things that, as the area-wide water quality planning agency that I'll talk about in just a minute, we need to look at as communities request us to do updates or amendments to their sewer service area plans, particularly amendments where you're adding area to the sewer service area. Those that needs to be in line with our range of projections. We do intermediate, which is what we think is most likely, low and a high. Those sewer service area plans need to align with those projections. That's a very important part of it, as well as looking at environmental resources such as primary environmental corridors and other lowland resources within those sewer service areas. So that is critical information to all types of planning that is happening within the county. And I think I do want to point out just kind of general access to expertise. We do have a wide range of expertise in-house. We had talked about, I think, Supervisor Krebs, you had talked about our expertise potentially in flood management planning, which we certainly have staff that can do look at floodplain boundaries. We do those types of studies oftentimes along river water courses. We have several going on right now, but also as unique situations come up and you just need to make a call to ask a question, we oftentimes will have the expertise in-house to answer those questions. And if we don't, we have relationships with other agencies and even universities where we can put you in touch with the experts that can get you the information that you need. So I think that is another very important part of our services that I wouldn't want to overlook. As well as coordinating regulations. So we do provide vital support to communities, and again, looking at floodplain issues, stormwater issues, wastewater facility planning, as well as transportation planning. So a lot of different areas where we're coordinating various federal and state regulations in a variety of ways, either in that water quality designation, as well as a designation as a metropolitan planning organization for 6 of our 7 counties, including currently Washington County. A few other examples of recent projects that I think were extremely helpful that are included in your impact analysis report, because it is extremely thorough. One area I wanted to bring up was a recent LIDAR project, a 2025 high density LIDAR project. The county, the commission was able to save the county $123,000 in that effort. So the way we were able to do that, we found several active partners willing to help all of our counties within the region take this costly project on, and it really provided a significant economy of scale. And we were also able to provide, I guess in an in-kind fashion, probably about $30,000 worth or so, the ability to do quality management, as well as just basic project management. Another kind of similar area that I'd like to highlight is orthophotos. We are now flying those every 2 years, so that provides provides extremely helpful information for planning, engineering purposes. Each time we fly, we are able to save Washington County about $37,000 because we're leveraging federal transportation funds to do that work. Another important project that we just did in the GIS area was that LISA analysis that I had talked about, which was very important to your farmland preservation planning activities. I've already talked about area-wide designations in addition to the Regional Planning Commission, so I won't dive into this into too much detail. But by governor's designation, we are the Metropolitan Planning Organization for Washington County, as well as 6 other counties in the 7-county region in southeastern Wisconsin, where we do obviously long-range transportation and land use planning, and also transportation improvement program, which is a required listing of all projects receiving federal funds that needs to be done to make sure that those projects are eligible for those federal funds. So Germantown is part of the Milwaukee urbanized area, so that is an important factor in our Metropolitan Planning Organization designation in our planning. As well, West Bend was what was called an urbanized area that was designated that after the 2010 census, which essentially means it's much more complicated than this. So if you have more detailed questions, our chief transportation engineer is here to answer them. But essentially what it means is there was designated transportation funding that went to the West Bend urbanized area. And that West Bend urbanized area consisted of a number of communities, being obviously the city of West Bend, I think went up to Kewaskum, down to Jackson, over to Slinger, included Hartford. After the 2020 census, the OMB, or Office of Management and Budget, looked at census data and their criteria for what an urbanized area, what consists of an urbanized area. And there was a small pocket between Slinger and West Bend that I think didn't quite have the population density. So West Bend was not designated as an urbanized area after the 2020 census, but it wasn't for lack of population. It wasn't population loss. There certainly was growth in that area. So after the 2030 census, I can certainly see that designation coming back, which would mean that there would also be those designated transportation funds that would come back to that urbanized area, which in turn would mean there would need to be that long-range transportation planning done, where you have to have a long-range transportation plan that looks out at least 20 years in advance at all time. And you'd also have to administer, or that TIP process would have to be administered, where you're making sure that all of your federally funded projects are being listed and available for public comment. So a few work items that go along with being designated as an urbanized area. Again, I talked about water quality management planning. Of course, we provide sewer service area planning and sewer extension reviews in advisory capacity to the DNR. That is one of the areas that we work in, but I think a little bit more unique to our agency is all of the work that we provide to your lake districts. We've been very active with your lake districts, providing services such as aquatic plant management plans that are necessary for lake districts to go after grant funds and their funding, and even potentially, and I think we're starting on more comprehensive plans where we're not only looking at that aquatic plant part, we're looking at recreation use, and we're also looking at runoff from existing land uses around lakes. So very important work there that we will be undertaking. And again, wetland and environmental corridor delineations is something unique that we do that I don't think any other regional planning commissions in the state of Wisconsin do, where upon request by either the county or city, village, or town, we will go out and delineate a wetland or environmental corridor, which may be necessary for a development project that might be proposed. And we can even do that for private landowners if they go through the proper local or county government authority. We can fulfill those requests as well. And we do that at a very discounted rate. Basically about 40% of what we think the overall cost of that delineation work is going to be. It's another very unique service, and of course that stormwater and floodplain expertise that our engineers on staff have and can consult with at any time. So I think I'll wrap up by my last bullet: informing additional stakeholders of impacts of county funding towards the commission. You've already done a great job of that. And I will note that I do have requests to come and do presentations to several local governments or associations representing local governments over the next couple of months to talk about these very services. So there's definitely interest there. I'll wrap up my comments with just the overall comment that providing data and advisory services to our counties and local governments is and will remain a core function of the commission. And one point that I haven't touched on, I think was a very important point that was included in your impact analysis, is the opportunity to have a voice in regional planning decisions. So you have 3 commissioners on our 21 member commission, and as well you have representation on several advisory committees that advise us in our regional planning activities. So I think it's very important for the county to have that voice in regional transportation planning, regional environmental planning, just to name a few. So those are the comments I had for your committee, but if you'd like me to answer any questions, I'd be happy to.
I have a question.
Okay, the chair recognizes Chairman Schleif.
Thank you. You heard the conundrum that Druid Lake is in, and I know you work a lot with DNR, so can you help?
Yes, absolutely. So that is one area where we can provide, we may have expertise that we can provide on a situation, or we do have relationship and do a lot of work with the DNR, so we may be able to start conversations there to see what the best path forward, if there is a path forward to take.
You're familiar with the flood storage designation?
I am our chief environmental engineer, would be extremely familiar.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Questions from the committee?
I had a question for probably Aaron would be best one for this one. Just looking at the very first committee report, it says the fiscal impact is for 2026 would be 197,000, and that number matches up with the letterhead from Sewer Pack for what the levy rate or amount is. In addition to the levy amount, what other fees historically in past years has Washington County paid to Sewer Pack? Because besides the levy, there's other fees for services performed. I'm wondering, is there a larger fiscal impact of what the budget could save, or how this all would shake out?
Sure, there are other kind of, I don't know if you'd call it à la carte is the right word, but there are other fees. I am not prepared.
So it is on page 68.
Oh, it is. Oh, good.
Wait, I didn't hear that.
I can provide you an update with that as well if you'd like.
Okay.
With so many attachments in the agenda, I've been just bouncing between tabs here too.
Okay.
So I apologize if I didn't find that.
Yeah, no,
It-
it's kind of
I
annoying.
did find the service fee schedule on your guys' website.
Yeah.
Just for the rest of the committee and others watching, service fees at Sewer, or service fees at Sewer Pack for the services range from $0 to $45,000, depending on truly
Yeah, and
what's being requested.
Yep.
So, and obviously the frequency of those requests really, it could be a big swing in the dollar amount. So I was just wondering if we have on a regular basis, large or small kind of other asks. I guess one other question, or really comes to my brain, the levy is required per state statutes. And I don't know of how this is all made up or really seeing the numbers, but is there a way where Sewer Pack could reduce the amount that they levy on a regular basis, but increase their fees for particular work to kind of create more of a la carte style level of service? Because I do think what might be best for Washington County for types of services, or what we would want out of the agreement or arrangement, might not be the same for Milwaukee or for Waukesha or any other member. And so this is definitely a bigger question or debate than should Washington County be in Sewer Pack next year. But is there a way to kind of reestablish what services and how we're obtaining those?
The cherry pick them.
Did you have a
Yeah.
comment?
I would like to share the podium with
go ahead.
you. To first say that in part, that is something we have done in the past year and a half already, and we can continue to do. That is, we have kept the levy rate low and even declining. So specifically, it's very small on the last page of our budget that is appended in your packet. But specifically, 2 years prior, our levy rate was 0.0009. The subsequent year, 0.00008, and proposed for 2026, 0.00079. Meanwhile, the service fee schedule you have seen on our website is one that we updated beginning this year and did institute some new fees for service that we recognized were long overdue, and in some tweaked existing fee, or I should say fees for existing services for which we had a previous fee.
Yeah, that is correct. And I think to talk about a couple specific service fees that either are going to potentially impact the county if you choose to retain our services and request them, and things that we've just done. I think the Lisa analysis I talked about is a highlight. That was service fee of about $2,000. And I think that you had an estimate of, if a private consultant would have done that work, would have been $70,000 or $80,000 in your impact analysis. I did take a look at our project code that we had for that, and we did spend probably about $35,000 on it, somewhere in that neighborhood. So another service fee that would impact you if you choose to make that request and remain in the Regional Planning Commission would be, of course, fee for comprehensive plans. The last time we did a comprehensive plan was 2019. That was the last time it was adopted. We actually started that work in 2016, so it was probably about a 2.5, 3-year project where we spent, I think it's in your report analysis, about 5,500 staff hours working on that extremely comprehensive plan, if you will. And the cost to us was pretty substantial. I believe it was, I have it here, over $400,000 of our actual time, and it was a $35,000 of our actual cost, and it was a $35,000 contract that we had to do that, and that did get raised slightly to $40,000. And of course, we would do a full update again if that was what was requested of us. We do, however, offer options. So if the county felt like, well, we don't need that, such a comprehensive plan with so much background data, we want to focus on just some specific areas, probably very specifically your land use plan map, your land use categories, looking at goals and objectives, which I think are pretty well aligned with your strategic areas already. That was a big part of what we did in 2019. However, you could kind of tailor your request to have a little bit less costly product, which I have in front of me would likely be about $25,000 if we did some kind of like tailored comprehensive plan as opposed to a full update of a comprehensive plan. I think going along with that, with your farmland preservation plan, one of the other areas that I've been approached by is to look at updating some of the local comprehensive plans, which may need to be done for their landowners to participate in the program. So that's something else that we would do. Last time around, we had several participating local governments, mostly towns, but also a few villages participate. And they actually chose a very affordable option that we offer that probably wouldn't necessarily be appropriate, but maybe could be done for a county level plan. But for a town plan where they really just I want to look at my land use plan map, that's what needs to be updated. We don't need to update the rest of the data. We did provide that service to a number of your local governments, and that at that time ranged between $1,000 and $2,500. Now we have, again, adjusted that fee a little bit, so it would be $2,500 for that option, where we're doing mostly land use plan map updates, but also maybe key text updates to land use categories, or maybe key goals and objectives and things like that. So we do provide a range of costs in some of our services that are in most demands, such as comprehensive planning.
Thank you.
Supervisor Mary?
Yeah, I have a number of questions, so if somebody else wants to interrupt, go ahead. Mr. Dahl, we last year, I believe we paid $185,000 as our levy. Do you know what the county ultimately paid over and above that for these projects? I mean, that came out of the county.
In 2024, we paid $260,000 to sewer PAC, $186,495 for the general levy, $15,000. These are the amounts from Eric. $15,000 payment, $15,363 for the first payment of our share of the 2024 orthophotography project. $15,000 for, we think these are 3 payments for the hazard mitigation plan. And then the $28,198 for the December 24-25 is the final payment on the 2024 orthophotography project.
And I think
Okay,
the,
so we pay the $197,000 for 2026. Now, I saw in the report here, Germantown was mentioned a couple times about the swamp area. I never knew his name. But those are fees that Germantown pays on top of that. In other words, we don't buy a ticket and they get the ride. We buy a ticket and they get to ride at a discounted rate. Is that what I'm understanding? The municipalities or the towns or whatever that turn to you for assistance?
that is correct. So local governments also do get a discounted rate, as you put it. You're paying county tax levy, and that does assist us in providing assistance to local governments, as well as that county tax levy acts as part of our non-federal match, which allows us to leverage transportation funds to provide planning services to local governments at a very discounted price. I think one of the Germantown projects that you looked at was a sewer service area plan update. So we only charge $100 for that. And actually, I think that update hadn't even occurred yet. So I think Germantown, that was before we charged that fee. But in general, for things like a sewer service area plan, we'll charge a local government $100 for a full update, and actually $3,500 for one of those plan amendments, which seems a little bit backwards. The reason being, many of our plans are frankly very out of date in a region, and we want to essentially encourage communities to do full plan updates as opposed to amendments. But yes, you are correct. You're paying into the tax levy, and that does allow us to provide discounted services to your cities, villages, and towns.
They're receiving that service at a discount. If the county determined it did not want to participate, then they would pay at a higher rate. It would still be available to them, correct?
I don't.
Services would still be available to all the townships, other municipalities in the county.
Now, that is one of the questions that, as we work through this process, remain to be answered. I am unsure that our services would still remain available to your cities, villages, towns, or your lake districts.
But that would be at an adjusted, some kind of an adjusted fee schedule.
Just unavailable could potentially be the outcome. But again, that's an unanswered question at this point.
Well, I thought I saw something in here for sure that
Looking at some of the backup data today, there was one of the other districts where the counties were removed from it, but municipalities were allowed to rejoin on a one-time basis.
yeah, I understood they were eligible to participate in some way.
Well, that was an example of how they handled the withdrawal process. So we do not have experience with a withdrawal process, correct?
Correct. And I would note one of the reasons that things may not be able to be answered tonight is that state statutes and do treat regional planning commissions across the state somewhat differently in various areas. So we wouldn't necessarily feel comfortable saying that we would be positive that that scenario could happen. Is again something we'd have to explore as this process moves forward if you were to explore withdrawing from the commission.
Okay. Also, question for you.
I'll get you in.
I'm sorry?
So, excuse me, Supervisor Primer, I will get you in.
No, go ahead.
Stay on his roll. Go ahead.
Oh, all right. You mentioned as an example, the LiDAR project, the savings to the county, but in fact, that's only once every 5 years. Is that correct?
That one is once every 10 years, and the ortho photos is once every 2 years at this point. I think probably the 5-year interval project that I identified was the land use inventory that we do. So that does occur every 5 years, usually 2020, 25. I think that our timing is going to change a little bit, and maybe more often actually, to do that land use inventory, because now we're flying orthos every 2 years, which is the basis of that land use inventory when we used to fly them every 5 years.
Right, okay, but that's not an annual kind of savings. This is something that's gonna be, you take that 180,000, whatever, and spread that out over a number of years, that annual savings actually is much less. I mean, it's gonna be divided by 1/5 or 1/10 or whatever, so.
Yes, that's correct. It's not an annual saving. So orthos is every 2-year savings, and the LiDAR is every 10 years.
Right, all right. And I guess one of the questions I also wonder about, if you look at section 6.1 of the executive summary, the timing says we're 45 days late. Because in order to cancel out for 26, we were supposed to have done this by June 30th. Everybody's not in there.
Yes, that's correct. We would not be we recognize that we would likely be on the hook for 2026, for lack of a better way to say it. But we would not be using ongoing funding in the operating budget. So when the parts of the withdrawal process are resolved and discussed, we would be coming back probably with a budget trailer resolution to address whatever funding would be needed.
So in fact, if we really wanted to get out from the relationship with Sewer Pack and save the money, 197,000 or whatever it is, we're not gonna do that now because we'd have to do that before next June 30th for 2027. I mean, we really wouldn't realize the savings from the 2026 budget.
That is correct. On a number of items within this budget, another example is the Agricultural Industrial Society funding. We are using the operating budget as a tool and a policy, a decision-making policy tool for what we want to be allocating ongoing tax levy dollars to. And there are a number of items where if there's disagreement that we should be funding them in an ongoing way, we are going to likely follow with the, whatever's needed to substantially resolve the issue, if that makes sense.
It does, believe it or not, it makes sense. I'm just trying to understand the timing on some of this because we're talking about a 2026 budget, but in fact, we're committed through 2026. It'd be 2027 before we'd realize anything technically within the budget.
Well, I would remind the Supervisor Mary that this is a biennial budget, so
Well, I
we are
realize
going
that,
into 2
but
years, so,
you take half of that for the second half of the biennial budget,
right.
but we're really not saving anything for 2026.
Right, which it sounds to me like, that would be negotiated and figured out in a separate item, I would imagine, to rectify that situation.
Well, I think we're at a point where the policymakers, with regards to the purse strings, are gonna advise on the direction that they want to go. And once we have that information, we would then likely follow with collaborative negotiations or whatever it might take to execute the direction, whatever that direction might be.
Thank you. I appreciate it. Aaron, please.
If I could just add one more thing, I think what we're talking about here is removing this out of the property tax, the ongoing tax levy base that we levy for on an ongoing basis, right? Whether we would take that out for the biennium, whether or not we owe in 26 would remain to be seen, but we would fund that with fund balance or with one-time revenue to complete the payment in 2026. We would take it out of the base.
The fact is, we're not talking really in reality about 2026, we're talking 2027. Should we decide to do something and then have to do it before the end of June next year?
Correct.
This next year's horse is gone. I mean, that race is already underway, so, all right. I'm sorry. I'm sorry, you had some questions.
Well, my question,
Supervisor Conrath, I will get to you, Supervisor Pridemore, or wait in. Thank you.
my question is, if we are to withdraw, when was the plan to withdraw? And what is the cost to us of all the obligations that we have with them? What would be the final cost? I'm just reading 6.2.
Got the same page.
We don't know that.
So we have no idea really.
Well, I mean, we can speculate
Right.
that we would owe for the year that we have committed,
Right.
and then any other contractual obligations that would be discussed with Sewer Pack. So for example, the LiDAR project comes to mind. There's been some commitments made by the county on any plans that they have started, for example, that we are actively participating in. Depending on the status of something, say like Vision 2050, we would probably have to talk individually about, are we committed to that or not? And what is the cost of that? And should we continue with, and hope that we can work together to, come to kind of an amenable agreement on what the county might owe the commission.
Okay, and then the other question I have is, well, how much are we always paying them to do all these obligations? What is all, what is the cost of that every year? Is there? I don't remember seeing a number.
Yeah, so I do have a chart and it is not in your packet. 2022, we paid 272,000, 2023, 200,000, 2024, 260. But it's composed of, a lot of times it's the base and then it's the a la carte stuff, right? So it's the hazard mitigation plan, it's the comprehensive plan, it's the LiDAR project, it's the orthophotography, it's the LISA analysis for the farmland preservation plan. It's a wetland delineation out of the highway shop, right? So those things that we are purchasing from Sewer Pack as part of that conversation.
And how many years have we been with Sewer Pack?
You've been with, yeah, since the beginning. So, and I think that's a good point that you bring up. You have been,
1960.
yeah, 1960. So it's been 65 years of,
That's when I was born.
no, that is a great point to bring up. It's been 65 years of really the Washington County investing in the work that the commission does. And you are one of our partners in us being able to provide such a, as I think it was put before, a sort of a vast array of services that is relatively unique. So you have been a big part of that.
Thanks.
Okay, Supervisor Conrath?
Thank you, Chair. Yes, I have some concerns too. I would like to see in writing, say if we still need these services that they offer. And it just appears by this discussion that it would end up costing us more if we would eliminate this contract. It seems like we're getting a strong return on investment and even some cost avoidance. And that possibly too, our municipalities would end up having quite a hardship from eliminating this contract, and that really we would shift a lot of the costs and things to the municipalities, which are already even leaner and more strapped, and then that cost would be higher for them. So I would really like to see on paper, if we would say go to a la carte or pay for these services in another way, that comparison and the impact on our municipalities too, because they still need these services Sewer Pack provides, what that would cost them.
I will just comment that there was some of that data provided in the memo to the degree that assumptions could be made. And I would just ask if there are specific services that you are assuming we still need when you say we are still doing them, because one of the conversations that I know we've had is that there are many of these services that know that is exactly what the recommendation is saying, is that no, we would not be doing these services anymore, right? Because it's to the tune of, you can't continue to do more with less, you would be doing less with less. So you really have to do walk through service by service. And that is part of the reason we provided the comprehensive plan example in the packet, because that is an example for that service of, we will be doing substantially less with our comprehensive plan with the elimination of Sewer Pack. And so that is part of the recommendation of just that acknowledgement that on each service. So I know I'll put our GIS manager on the spot, but ortho photography is another one that comes up, that it is very likely that decisions are made that lengthen the flights or that, reduce the service level of what that is currently being provided at.
Maybe you want to explain LiDAR and orthophotography. I've been on.
Oh,
Eric, maybe.
Maybe there is someone else to volunteer that would like to explain LiDAR and orthophotography.
LiDAR is a topographical type of mapping using radar, whereas ortho is pretty much just an overhead shot, so it's relatively flat. But it does give you at least detail, sharp detail of all the things that are in the area. So, but I'll let Mr. Damcott go ahead and put his 2 cents worth in.
It's really hard for me to talk about the acronym, so if I slip into it, let me know. So yes, orthophotography is just as you said. It's taken from a fixed wing aircraft. It's what we've been acquiring now is true color with a 4th band near infrared 3-inch pixels on the ground. So if you would zoom in so far, you'd start seeing each individual pixel of the image And each of those would be 3 inches by 3 inches. We used to capture those every 5 years, as was previously mentioned, and now we do it every 2 years. And because we're able to partner with the Regional Planning Commission, we save, what was the number, 30,000 or so?
Yeah, the number was.
30,000 every 2 years. So if you wanted to maintain the same level of service, you would either need to kick in 37,000 and we could continue to maintain the same level of service. If you decided that you didn't want to maintain the same level of service, we could spend the same amount, but we would either have to get orthophotography less often, or we'd have to get orthophotography at a lower resolution. All of those are options that would come eventually before the Land Information Council and ultimately this committee. So those are the options. We provide a high level of service. Both our internal customers and our external customers have become accustomed to that. So that's the decision that you would have to make on orthophotography. Similarly with LiDAR. So as you mentioned, it's light detecting and ranging, just like radar's an acronym, LiDAR's an acronym as well. It's just a different wavelength in the electromagnetic spectrum. Fixed wing aircraft goes through the sky, flies through, pulses lay on the ground, returns back to the aircraft. They know exactly how long it took. They know exactly the position of the aircraft. They can determine the location of that pulse on the ground. If we did not have the benefit of the Regional Planning Commission, we would likely turn our project over to the USGS, and it would be run through a program called they'll look it up, because this is an acronym I don't remember. The Geospatial Products and Services Contracts Program. So that's what it would be run off. We would essentially write a check to USGS, and our data would probably what they refer to as QL2 or quality level 2, and we would get 2 points per square meter. That's what we would have. So and we would do that once every 10 years or so. This time, with the benefit of the Regional Planning Commission, instead of going through that GPSC contract, we are going through a cooperative agreement, which instead of having the USGS do it, we have it done by the Regional Planning Commission. Through that cooperative agreement, they again collected money from USGS, Department of Transportation, MMSD, some other funding partners to reduce our costs significantly. The quality of the product is not that QL2 where we're getting 2 points per square meter. It's a high density. It's 30 points per square meter. So within each square meter, you're getting 30 points. Now, if you're trying to use that LiDAR data to map the edge of a curb, you're going to be much more accurate by having that high density LiDAR. So it's, so we could do that additional product, but it would cost significantly more, or we provide a lower quality product for less money. Like those are decisions that will have to come after your decision of what you want to do with the current question, which is continuance WIRPAC or not.
Every topic is very similar to this. There are other, each staff person who works on that, whether it's Scott Schmidt with highway and transportation funding, or it's Deb with comprehensive planning and parks and open space plan, has very similar responses to that of seeking out alternative ways or straight up making, changes to the way we're delivering the program to reduce the service level. But in almost all cases, the message with it is there isn't more funding. So there's maybe the same level of money that they have for LiDAR. So it implies that there would be service level reductions in all of the areas that touch SewerPAC.
And the information that we collect currently, the way that both LiDAR and orthography work is that we collect that and we fund that at the county level, but then all of our municipal partners get that, and their engineering companies and everybody else too. So the information that we collect is used across the county, both in the private and other public sector agencies.
Hey, Supervisor Conrath, you had a question?
Yes, thank you. I'm sorry, I didn't get to respond or really finish my concern. So if you want to finish this discussion first, and then I'll chime back in. Thank you.
Well, I think they've gone as far as you go ahead and
Okay,
chime
all right.
in. It's an open
Yeah.
discussion.
Okay, yeah, thank you. Yeah, I mean, yeah, going back to my concerns too, yes, the report says, a lot of these things are completed, but, the aquatic invasive species, um, all this different planning, sewer service area planning, a lot of the items under, sorry, this is a huge document, but, a lot of these things aren't, really a one and done. That's, things that need to be, repeated on a, whatever, not necessarily annual basis, but, some type of a schedule, so many years. So I'm still, concerned about the impact on our municipalities because this, work still needs to be done. And I would like, in writing, the impact on our municipalities for how they would, the cost in the future for when they have to redo their planning, or redo, the comprehensive planning to say for the lake districts or the, aquatic invasive species, the water, all the, the water testing and things that need to be done, that could be mapped out. So we're truly making an informed decision.
Well, I would say this, when it comes to the municipalities, we certainly work with them. We do our best, but we are also limited by our own budget. Are we bringing them a Cadillac or are we bringing them a Chevy? It's not that no information will be available. It just may not be as high quality of information as what we currently receive from SERPAC. So it's a thought, and I'm not suggesting either way. I'm just stating that this is kind of the reality. You look at this budget item and you go, okay, well, it's not currently in the executive's budget. So that means it would be up to us to put it back in. And where exactly are you going to do that? And how much is the executive going to like that, or want to go along with that? Because you better be.
I'm not elected by the executive. I'm elected by my constituents.
Absolutely, and I'm not taking a side either way. Okay, I'm only pointing out the realities of the situation. That's all.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I'm trying to look to, bigger picture. It seems like we might just be, shifting the tax burden, that there'll still be, these services still need to be supplied, and we might be just shifting that burden and then increasing it.
And those services may be still supplied, but at a lower level. I mean, maybe something less than what we're currently doing. And I'm not taking a side or a point of view on this because I share a lot of your same concerns with the municipalities and all the rest of that. All I'm stating is the reality of the situation. So, Steph, is that
a comment on that too? We have to be careful not to get too lean. I think that's maybe we are, say, the most conservative county in the state. We are extremely lean. But we have to be very careful that we don't get too lean.
I can certainly understand that sentiment. Supervisor Mary?
What is the expectation of this group tonight?
Yeah.
Right now, exactly what we're doing. Pounding it out. There's really no answers are going to be necessarily provided, but the information that's going to kind of hit you. This is the time, like I said at the beginning of this discussion, to ask the difficult questions and make the difficult statements, like I just did with Supervisor Conrad. Again, I don't necessarily hold these views. I'm just telling you what the reality of the situation is so that you can make the informed decision. As the chairman of this committee, doesn't mean I control it. Doesn't mean I own it. You guys, I could take a particular view and you guys could say, well, you're wrong and we're going to go and do this anyway. It's very, but to me, it's very important that you have all the information and that you look at what you're up against and really get because hopefully there you'll come up with an idea or something that you want to do, a direction. That's the point is this discussion is to ask these very difficult questions. I'll say, so please go ahead.
Yes, Mr. Chair, if it still pleases you, I earlier offered that Commissioner Hanson could say a closing set of remarks on behalf of our group. So I'd like to still bring that before you. Commissioner Hanson is a constituent of Washington County.
Okay, well, let's bring forward.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Katrina Hansen. I recognize a lot of faces in the room. I am a joint appointee commissioner for Sewer PAC for Washington County. I also serve on Land Information Council of Washington County. I am a member of the Planning and Research Committee for Sewer PAC. I am a resident of the town of Kewaskum. I am a local West Bend-based business owner and a real estate broker of 22 years. So everything we're talking about here is really relevant to my daily life as well. I also serve on various local boards, which gives me access to many of the decision makers, many of the constituents that will be impacted by any decisions that would be made by the supervisors to sever ties with Sewer PAC. And I give you this background only to let you know that I am a vested stakeholder in all the decisions that you make. Yeah, I sit with the two other commissioners for Washington County, and I have the pleasure of hearing everything that happens in these meetings, which is it far surpasses any kind of understanding that I could possibly hope to gain. I could spend 50 years on this board and not understand everything that they do, the depth of knowledge that they have about land information and planning. So I'm humbled when I sit in on these meetings with as much as I do know and access that I do have to all the professionals, that still when I sit with these people, I go, there is just so much vast information that this county uses routinely that I think we take for granted when we talk about severing our ties with Sewer PAC. So I've been very vocal from the start. And let me be clear that the start of my understanding that Washington County potentially wanted to sever ties with Sewer PAC was just June of 2025. I was asked to be a part of a phone call that Ms. Ludovic led with the other commissioners and Mr. Damcott to inform us that the county executive's office was considering removing Washington County from Sewer PAC or removing a line item in the budget to support our participation in it. The one question I had, because I'm just a regular old person, I'm just a constituent, I'm a voter, I'm a resident, was, so how are we replacing these services? And Ms. Ludovic was very honest in that moment and said, we don't know yet. And so my follow-up question was, what is the cost to replace these services? The same response was, we don't know yet, but we're going to explore that. And I appreciate that the county did explore that. I think the analysis was really comprehensive. I read through all of it, and I think very clearly in that analysis, I think the impact to Washington County is negative. I think it is disfavorable for us to walk away from a joint commission that we have been participated in since 1960. What's the math on that? Right, thank you. So I guess my concern is very basic because I am a very basic person. I share Supervisor Conrad's concerns that she's voiced here, that we don't have the data that we need to make any decisions. And appropriately, there's nothing to do for 2026, and we are going to be on the hook for our contract obligations for 2026. So the question is really, what do we do in the future, 2027 moving forward? And I don't know how a decision can be made for a current biennium budget when we don't have the full answers as to what will it cost this county and the taxpayers to replace these services. I understand in speaking directly with the county executive that he's concerned, and fairly, that we don't use all of the services that the levy provides. Okay, fair, but that's the point of a co-op. That is the point of cost sharing, is that while our county may not need as much of X, another county may not need as much of what we receive as well, but we share in that cost to reduce the cost to all for all of these services. And I think the analysis in our packets clearly showed that to replace the current services, let's even say just a fraction of them, is I think without a doubt, and I can say confidently, I think will be significantly higher than what our current cost is. And I need to know as a taxpayer, forget about me being a commissioner, who's paying for that? And if we don't have a plan for that, why are we discussing that in this current budget cycle? How can a decision be made in a current budget cycle without accurate figures for what the county wants to see for reduced services? It's fair discussion. But what will it cost us, and who is that going to cost? And what is the comparison to our current cost with Sewer PAC? So all I'm doing tonight, a very basic message. I am far from the smartest person in the room. You all have vast experience. I'm just asking, and I appreciate Ms. Ludovic's comment that we are here talking about this, but I think we are far from being able to make a decision. I think this discussion has to go far into 2026. I think there needs to be listening sessions with the local municipalities to understand this is the impact to your municipality or to the taxpayers, who, by the way, lots of them who I've talked to, because I did have the opportunity to speak to several county employees, taxpayers, heavy users of GIS, et cetera, all who voice significant concerns about walking away from all that Sewer PAC offers. And I think that additional discussion is needed with the stakeholders of this county, not just the people in this room and beyond, but the people that are out there. What happens if we walk away from all of this? Because I think the answer right now is we don't know. Even with this incredible analysis, we don't know. But right now, it doesn't look good. So that's all I'm asking tonight, is just continued dialogue. Is I understand going against the recommendation of the county executive's office is a big move for the supervisors. But as Supervisor Conrath expressed, the duty is to the constituents and not to the county executive's office. Budgeting stuff is hard. I understand that. I spoke with the county executive about the frustrations around this budget. I respect that process. I do. But I don't think we are in a position for this budget to make such a massive decision that could significantly impact landowners, GIS users, taxpayers, and beyond. That is my opinion, both as the joint appointee for Sewer PAC, but maybe more importantly, just as a resident of Washington County. That's all I have. Thank you.
Okay, anybody else have any questions, comments, concerns? Supervisor Krebs.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. We're still going through the budget process. It's early in the budget process. I haven't seen a draft of this budget yet. Are there any comments from any of the cabinet members as far as why the executive has chosen to go this path at this point, or the rationale with it that you can share at this point?
Yeah, sure. I can take a shot at that. Priorities. So I think we've been clear about what the priorities of the county are. Sewer PAC and planning in general services dating back to our priority-based budgeting exercise. Right? So public safety, transportation and infrastructure, access to basic needs. You see all of the general priorities. And I think that the appetite from the county executive's office is that they are open to what the county board feels is in the best interest of the constituents, but does not want to increase property taxes and or have the burden shifted to the property taxpayers for services that they may or may not use, or, you know, may truly be, and whoever used the term Cadillac, I appreciate that. I also agree that I feel like a lot of the services from Sewer Pack are of a very high quality for our county. And so I think it just comes down to, you know, there's a series of levers that can be pulled. And as the county executive puts together his recommendations, right, he has to pull some and not pull others. You're going to hear about another one in a second, right? And then, and that's why when you hear about all of them, right, then you can start to have those, which ones do we like, which ones don't we like, which levers do we want to pull, do we not want to pull? And I think that there is a desire with the approach we're taking to this budget by bringing these items to you early to get that feedback from the county board and have this exact dialogue of do we want to pull different levers? I mean, what really truly is what the constituents would want. So I do think that is why you are here today listening. And I do think, you know, talking to people about, you know, do they want to pay more taxes? You know, whatever the other issues are, what other services might you not want that we have, right? How does that work is the work of the committee. And from here can go out and do that work and kind of bring that back. So I don't know if that answers the question, but I do think that there has been a number of items related to Sewer Pack that have kind of, you know, stacked over time. And this year we got a letter to increase the levy to Sewer Pack. And I think that was more of kind of that right at that principled conversation of why cost of doing business that we haven't increased the levy in X number of years. And that, you know, that point of it's hard work not to increase the levy. Right. And so it was just kind of that really was I don't want to say a straw, but it was a moment in time when the conversation shifted to no, right? We can't just increase property taxes on people for any service, let alone a service where we have questions about how the regional allocation and that $200,000 membership is being applied every year. So I think the services we really like, right? So that is the predicament that's in front of you.
I will be
Karen,
quick.
oh,
I will be quick.
oh,
Thank
please,
you.
right ahead. Take your time.
My comment is not specific to the Sewer Pack issue. It's more around just the concept of holding the line on property taxes. We just finished our round of August budget meetings. You know, as you know, you were there this week. Really, I think that from my perspective, there were two main themes around holding the line on property taxes that became evident at these meetings, and I think it was explained to the chair of the standing committees at the time. Really, I think in 2026, looking forward at what's happening elsewhere in the county, we're looking at some of what's happening with the other tax entities, right? We know the MPTC referendum coming online, couple of school district referendums coming online. Both of those things will have impact on tax bills. Additionally, local municipalities with additional debt and even just generally net new construction, right? I mean, I'm a Jackson resident. I just read in the paper that they're talking about increasing taxes 6.8% in Jackson alone, right? So I think in terms of us doing our part to hold the line while everything else is changing, that was one of those main themes. A second theme was that looking forward into 2027, depending on how these discussions around the EMS issue happen and depending on what the plan ends up being, you know, you could see a significant impact to county tax bills for the first time in a long time. And so to do our part in 26, looking forward to 2027, that was another one of those main themes that the county executive described in those budget meetings. So I just wanted to add that piece.
Thank you.
I appreciate how early in the process, I feel like us as just committee members are getting some of these heads up, having these conversations. Having been a part of I don't even remember how many budget cycles now. It's been too many. This definitely feels like some of the earliest conversations about some of these bigger issues we're having. So I definitely appreciate it. Looking forward, what is the rest of our timeline getting to budget night, budget vote? When will we see either a draft or the full budget to come out for us to look at and really start to figure out which levers we're individually agreeing with or not agreeing with?
Sure. At this point, the plan is for a budget to be released in September with a presentation to the county or to the county board on the night of the county board. After the county board, then we start our committee meetings, right? So the next week, our committee meetings will start. You'll see the individual pieces that pertain to this standing committee at that time. Moving into October, we have our public hearing. And that's right before a special, well, it's an executive committee, but we hold that at 6 p.m. in October. So that is where the beginning process of the deliberation on the overall budget, right? So that's where the executive committee will start deliberating on the budget picture in totality outside of your individual standing committees. And then obviously in November is when the full board convenes to ideally pass a budget on that night. That's in the lead up to that is where we will be taking in potential amendments, fielding questions from you all on amendments, helping you draft potential amendments. We like to do that ahead of time so we're not scrambling on the floor of the board with budget amendments. But that's the way that process works out. And we send a memo out in the lead up to that as well about how to build those amendments and who to contact, and we will provide you all the assistance with any of that you might need. So it's just a general description of the process.
Okay, I appreciate that, and that helps, but just refresh how fall will play out. So thank you.
Sure.
Okay, any other comments or questions?
Can I ask a question, please? Just as a taxpayer, not a commissioner?
I would rather not take any questions from the floor.
Oh, can I come up here just to ask a question about?
I'd rather not. I'd rather not. Only because otherwise it kind of leads to a listening session, and that's not something that I would, then I didn't give the rest of the public opportunity to come up here and state there. So that would be a problem. Couple of points. This was a discussion, heated one, passionate one, but a discussion. No decisions have been made or will be made tonight. The idea here was for you to see the problem from both sides of the argument and start to formulate ideas in your head about what the priority of the county is and where we need to go with this item issue. So moving forward, and look, Supervisor Conrath, I thought you raised some great points, in regards to our municipalities and stuff like that. Certainly, Mr. Damcott also came up, gave us some really good information, as well as SewerPAC. Having been at that budget meeting, I will tell you, this is the toughest budget I've ever faced in my 10 years. So it's going to be a real difficult kind of fight. And I don't know where that's going to go. I'm not promising anything other than that I want honest discussion at this committee. And I want you to know the truth, and not the sugar-coated whatever, just this is the hard facts. I just believe that's a better way to do business when you start with honesty. Now we can talk. So going forward, keep this in your mind. And hopefully come budget time, if you want to make an amendment or maybe something will change between now and then, I don't know. But the whole idea was to prepare you for the possibilities, and positive or negative. So, okay. With that said, I think we ready to move on, Ms. Ludwig? I think I've pretty much covered this pretty heavily. unless there's anything else you wanted to add.
No, I will just actually, since you asked, if you do have, I know Supervisor Conrath asked for a couple things. If you do have requests for information or specific research or data gathering, as a reminder that your requests should funnel through Kayla, and then she can work on collecting all of that on your behalf.
Great, and thank you for that. That's actually perfect. Because this is such a big issue, please, yeah, talk to Kayla. She's our resource. She's our person.
She's the focal point.
Yeah, and she will get you any information you need or help you to formulate your idea, or your plan. If we do need to submit an amendment or anything like that, she would be the person to help you do that. So make sure we do. All right, moving on, the 26-27 biennium budget briefings relative to real estate transfer fees. Ms. Ludovic, who's speaking? Oh, okay. All right.
Thank you,
Mr.
Mr. Chair.
Dahl.
I will make this one quick.
Oh, excuse me. Thank you guys for coming. We do appreciate you being here and giving us your information. It was very informative. Thank you. Okay, excuse me.
Thank you.
Mr. Dahl.
Excuse me. I will make this quick. The issue that we're describing here is a potential impact to real estate transfer fees. There's some legislation that's been proposed that would impact essentially the share of real estate transfer fees that's retained by the county. Likewise, it would also reduce the fee itself, but again, increase the percentage that the county retains. Essentially, it would result in approximately a 67% increase in the real estate transfer fee amounts that gets retained by the county. The reason we're bringing this to you is because we're making some assumptions about the future of this legislation. We are making assumptions that it does pass, and so we are planning for some additional revenues in our budget. The reason we're bringing this to you so early is this represents, to an extent, this represents some risk that's in our budget as well, right? So if this would not happen for some reason, this would be funds that we would need to come up with. We are confident in this legislation, confident enough that it gets included in the budget. There's been a number of conversations out there. Chairman Schleif mentioned something earlier this week even. And so the confidence level is high here, but again, we are taking some risk. And so we wanted to kind of put this out there just to give you the opportunity to see it and ask questions. You see the chart on the committee report really just kind of is an attempt at an estimate on what the potential revenue impact could be. And so what we did here was we took, essentially one of our lowest years on record in terms of the revenue that we got, and we applied a 67% increase to it. And you see that it's $360,000, which is more than the $275,000 that we're currently estimating in the budget. So we are not risking as much as we could, but we wanted to mitigate that risk as much as possible. So we didn't put the full amount in there.
So you're budgeting for increase, but not the full potential increase.
That's correct. And so if, assuming that does pass, there is an increment there to use to potentially address some of the other pain points in the budget, right? So we've got, I think the landscape on this, we hear versions of this every once in a while, and the landscape in this particular time is a little bit unique because the Realtors Association's in support, the county's association, there's kind of broad support really for the first time in a long time. This version of the legislation reduces the fee I don't know that past versions did that. And so I think that really was a big selling point for some of the other stakeholders that are involved. And so that kind of boosts the confidence on this a little bit.
Is this a standalone bill that's working through the state, or is this being rolled into a larger package?
This is standalone legislation. It's not packaged. It wasn't included in the big omnibus budget stuff. It was kind of all held separately.
Okay. Is there a deadline at the state when this would either pass by or just kind of fall apart, or a typical or expected, like, I don't know if what the state's cycle is?
Yeah, so they're not doing a lot of work in the summer. That's kind of why, that's what makes me nervous, right? Is that they don't do a lot of work in the summer. We're expecting that they come back in the fall and get to work on this stuff. In terms of a drop dead date, I think there's a real chance we find ourselves in a position where, we're very far along in our budget planning process, almost to the point of budget adoption, where we now got to decide, do we think this is going to happen or not?
So it's gonna slide in under the wire, if it slides at all. So I think that's why you're bringing it to us, because it's an assumption, but it's a little tricky.
I can appreciate you bringing it to us, and this is one of those things. These are the types of situations with the county going to a biennial budget. This is some of that risk that just is associated with it, so we'll have to just see what happens with it.
And to your point, we're coming into the process much earlier than usual, and I think more informed, because, sometimes the first few years when I was on the board and the budget was coming yearly, you hardly got a chance to really see or understand anything, and before you're voting on it. Here we're ripping it apart, and dissecting it pretty good. So any other questions on this?
I do.
Excuse me. Chairman
Devoted. Aaron, not to throw more doubt in it, but say the bill passes September 30th. Is there a waiting period before it goes into effect typically?
I checked on this one because, unlike some of the legislation that we've been looking at, this one takes place essentially, it takes place immediately upon publication, I think they call it. So basically within a month of approval.
So we could see revenue right away at the start of the year if it passes.
Correct.
Thank you.
Thank you. Great question. Anybody else? All right, well, we ended on a much easier one. That's good. Okay, well, then that would conclude our discussion on that. So next meeting date would be September 18th, right here at 4:30, and I will call this meeting adjourned.